All right, so welcome everyone to Goal Setting for Designers. Uh, uh, this is UX and ATX. For those of you that don't know, UX and ATX is a community for designers or anybody interested in design. It is really all about bringing people together, no matter where you are in your career, no matter where you are in the world. We have a lot of folks in Austin, but we also have folks literally all over the world. And we are happy to have everyone here. My name is Cindy Brummer. I'll explain a little bit about who I am in just a second. I'm one of the organizers and founders of UX and ATX. Also on the call, I know I saw Andrina Dyer. She is my one of the other organizers who also started very on early organizing and getting things going, and we have this vision. We also have a few more people on the organizing committee, and new to us is James Fight. He's our coordinator, helping us keep things straight so that we can tell you about meetups more than 4 weeks in advance. That's our goal, is to be more organized. And like, perfect topic for tonight is setting goals. So welcome everyone. I'm just going to kind of dive into, like, you're probably wondering, well, why is she giving a goal setting? Well, in my day job, I run an agency, a UX design and development agency, and goal setting is part of my everyday. I set goals every year. I've been doing this for over 10 years, not just running the company, but also setting goals so that I can get us where my vision is of where I want to go. And I've honed this over and over and over again. And now I'm starting to do it with my team and getting them thinking about goals and helping them advance to where they want to be. And it helps out too, because I'm also an instructor. I teach at the University of Texas boot camps. I also help out with the MICA, the Maryland Institute College of Art graduate capstone program. I'm a volunteer in lots of different organizations. And on top of that, I have 2 kids that I'm trying to keep up with. So I have to set goals in order to, keep moving in my life. So what we're going to cover tonight basically fall into these 5 things. First of all, I'm going to explain why we set goals to help you kind of understand the importance of it and why I recommend the way that of goal setting that I do. I have a framework. I'm going to explain in depth what all the different parts of that framework are. This is the one that I've been cobbling together from different places that really works for me, and I highly encourage you to customize it for you as well. There are a couple of activities. Now, I'm hoping that we can do some breakout rooms, but I just want to set that up in advance. I am going to have a couple of activities where you'll get to try a couple of these things out and then ask questions so that you can, start to get a feel for goal setting, because it's daunting when you first start if you've never really done this before. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with how to stick with those goals, how you can keep going, and then how you can make them better, because you don't just, one and done it. It's all about moving forward and continuous improvement. So I want to start off with why set goals. So if you look this up on Google, everybody has an opinion, but they all pretty much fall into, the same basic advice. First of all, goals help us align with what we want to do. So, we can stay focused on what we want to achieve in life, and it helps guide us, get us in there. Now, it's not necessarily a straight path. And what my business coach always talks to me about is it's not about necessarily the end point. We want to target toward the end point, but it's about the trajectory. And if we are moving in the right direction, if the trajectory is right, even if we're off a little bit or things change, we're still going on the path we want. And goals help us. They kind of give us those guardrails of life. They also help us take something that might be really big and help us focus it down into something that's what I like to call more snackable. Okay, because we don't want to just necessarily set goals 1 year. It's important to kind of have an idea of where we want to head, like have like a target, like 5-10 years in the future. And what yearly goals do, or even smaller goals do, is they help us move like march toward that, so that we can get going and do it in something that's a little bit easier to manage. And then also, it's all about continuous improvement. And I can honestly say that the goals that I had 10 years ago were very different from where I am today. And what I have targeted in the future 10 years may change, but that's okay. I'm constantly changing, I'm constantly improving, and my goals are adjusting and shifting over time. That's kind of what I'm going for. Oh, I almost forgot. The final piece of why we set goals is it holds us accountable. Like if we don't set anything for ourselves, then how will we know if we're getting where we want to go? It's like just meandering off in, this random place. That accountability is so important for helping us stay on track. And holding ourselves accountable is probably, in my opinion, it's the hardest thing, because we can rationalize and tell ourselves, oh, that was fine. So this is probably the hardest thing of what we want to do. And I was looking up setting goal quotes, and I found this one from Albert Einstein. And it's all about thinking about the goal. You want to think about tying your happiness to the goal instead of to whether, it's a specific person or things. It gives us more meaning. It's all about the meaning of life. The sad thing about it, and maybe this isn't sad, is that there was a study done by the a Harvard business study, and this has been several years, but at the time, they found that only 3% of all Americans wrote down their goals. So there was a slightly larger percent, I can't remember the exact percentage, but a slightly larger percent had goals, but a lot of people don't set goals. And this is super common. I will say that as a hiring manager who hires designers, what I like to see is someone who has a goal, some sort of path that they're headed on. And I'll ask them, what is your goal? And if they don't know, that tells me that that person isn't really driven. They don't really know what they want to do in life. And I want someone who's driven. I want to see someone who's moving forward. They have a path, a direction. It really helps me understand who they are as a person. So this 3%, I challenge you to be part of this 3%, because it's going to give you an edge. If only 3% of Americans set a goal, right, or write down their goals, and you're among that group, you already have an edge on all these other designers that are going after the same jobs as you, that don't have goals, that don't know where they're going. And it also, goals help you figure out, like, what do you want to do? Like, if you know my goal is to be an interaction designer at Google, well, that's great. You're moving, you have guardrails that are helping you go in that direction, rather than someone that's like, I just want to design and I don't know what. They don't have as much direction as you. So it's going to give you an edge in the job hunt if you have goals written down. Now, okay, so then I also found this study that found that only 8% of people that set goals actually achieve them. And you're probably thinking, oh, well, that sucks. Why am I even here? If only 8% of people achieve goals, how is that? Well, I looked a little bit closer at it, and this includes people who set resolutions. Now, I have some strong opinions about resolutions. New Year's resolutions sound great. They're complete BS, because we set them, we want to get, fired up, and then in 2 months we lose our motivation and we forget about them, and we don't have anything else in place to help us keep going. So what I'm going to talk about tonight in terms of goal setting isn't a resolution. It is specifically a way to think about your goals, continuously improve them, hold yourself accountable, and keep on that trajectory. You have to separate that from your New Year's resolutions. And why do we even do the new year? I mean, you can set goals anytime. It doesn't just have to be on a yearly basis. That's just convenient with the calendar. You can set goals any time of the year, and you should look at that. If they aren't working for you, you can totally reassess. So one of the ways that you can be not one of the 8% that or not one of the 92% that doesn't achieve their goals, is that you need a framework. This is how you can be successful in actually achieving your goals. So what I'm going to talk about tonight they fall into these things. First, values, and I'll explain what values mean. Then your vision. What is your vision of what you want to achieve? Maybe not just this year, but maybe well down the path. Next, how do we set goals that you can actually do? So we're going to go through what smarter goals are. And then we're going to focus on one in particular, your MIG, your most important goal. This is of all of the goals, this is the most important for you to focus on. So let's start with values. Values are the things that are your guiding principles. These are your personal values. Okay, so you might work at a company that has values on the wall, but you might have personal values that are different to you. Now, these aren't necessarily ethics. They could be, but what these do is they help you focus on what's important for you as a person. Now, I'll tell you what mine are. I have 3, and I set them several years ago, and I spent a lot of time with introspection, figuring out what really resonates with me, what's super important to me. So the first one is creativity. I know from experience that when I'm not doing things that allow me to be creative, I feel dead inside. So creativity is super important for me, and I've tried to weave it into everything that I do, whether it be at work or at home. It's really important that I focus on that. My second value is integrity. For me, it is so important that I am honest and transparent, and that the people that I work with are honest and transparent. Telling a lie to me is like the worst thing ever. I never want to be lied to, and that's what's super important to me. And so I try never to lie. And I will own up to my mistakes. These are all things that are part of what I consider to be integrity. And that's important to me. So that's one of my personal values. Third is independence. So independence is really important to me because I don't want to have to depend on anyone else. So when I was first getting started as a designer, actually before that, when I was in my previous career, I had an event that caused me to look at what I was doing as a news producer. And I realized that I was screwed. If something happened to my husband, I was not making enough money to survive. I'd have to move out of my house. I would be supporting my son, and I was not independent. And it is one of the things that fired me up to move into design, because I wanted to be independent and not have to depend on anyone else. When I was in my first design job, it was great. I love my boss, but my CEO was terrible. And he allowed a doctor to attack, not physically attack me, but she went after me, and because she didn't like me, and I had to defend my job. And it was when that happened that I swore up and down I was never going to let that happen again. And that's when I got serious about my company, Standard Beagle. So independence is super important to me, and that probably means I'll probably never work. I'm unemployable somewhere else, but that's why it's important to me. And that's why I do the things that I do. So I encourage you to set values. So how do you do that? Well, you take a list of the different adjectives that are, potentially could be part of that. And I like to take a large list like this. You can see there's a whole bunch of stuff on there. And what you do is you start looking at it and marking maybe half the list. What are the 20 or even 11 ones that resonate the most with you? And then looking at it again and then narrowing it down from there. Eventually you want to narrow it down to 3 to 5 words that most resonate with you. And you don't have to use my list. Take a screenshot if you want of this, because I'm going to have you do an activity in a second, thinking about your values. But you can add your own. You don't have to use my list. You can certainly use your own list. And I do encourage you to do this maybe over a couple days. We're in this activity obviously going to have only a few minutes, so go back and revisit it. But that's what I want you to do. I want you to spend a little bit of time thinking about your values. And then if you're comfortable, you can share it with other people in your room. If you're not comfortable, that's totally fine. I'm not gonna make you do anything like that. Does anyone have any questions about what we're gonna do? No? Come off mute if you do. All right, I am gonna break us up into 10 breakout rooms. I'm gonna set the clock for 10 minutes, so this won't be long. Don't worry, you won't have to stare at people for very long, especially if this is an uncomfortable activity. Spend the first 5 minutes working on some values, spend the last 5 minutes sharing, and come on back when you'll be back in 10 minutes.
Cindy, you want me to go to room 3?
Sure, if you want to. I'm just gonna. Sherry, thank you so much for always taking notes in the chat. I really appreciate that. How did that go? How did that go? Does anyone want to share?
It was really cool. We found out that we had a lot of similar kind of values, especially creativity. And we were wondering if that's just because creativity lends or UX lends itself to creativity, or, you know, but that was something that we all kind of shared.
That's awesome. A lot of folks coming back. All right, welcome back. We're all back. I was just asking a few folks that came back just before you how that went, and they found that creativity was a commonality. Does anyone want to share some of their values if you feel comfortable? Before I pick on anyone, like James.
I can share mine.
Oh, okay, Alex, you go.
So, I mean, like as we were all talking in our group, you know, I think they all definitely are important, you know, in their own right, but to narrow it down was very difficult based on, you know, kind of what, you know, you kind of want for yourself. But the three I think I landed on were: number one, efficiency. I just, in my life, find myself to be a very efficiency driven person. I want everything to be efficient to the point, no wasting time, make progress. And number two, I said impact, because I want to make sure that, and I think this also ties in with, my background in like animation and entertainment, is that I want my work to be impactful, and with it be, inspirational in the way that, for me, the work that I look up to is inspirational to me and influences, what I do, and makes me want to do that kind of stuff. And then the last one is playfulness, because I think it is very important. And this one also kind of goes hand in hand with creativity, right? But it's I'd say more so a state of mind, just like playfulness, be able to be a little bit laid back, definitely get the work done, then make sure you're on track, but, have some fun with it, be a little bit playful, and bring out that inner child in the work that you do.
I love that. That's awesome. Does anyone else want to share? We'll just do one more person if you're open to it. If you hear my daughter, she walked up to me and told me she wanted to be a realtor. I have no idea what that meant. Michaela, did you come off mute to share?
Sure, I can go. Our group all felt like creativity was a value, so I definitely think that might be a trend for UX designers. We also all felt like it was hard to narrow down our values. We thought that the list had really great values on it, and a couple of us had originally like 20 values and narrowed it down to 5. But besides creativity, I think one of my values is quality. I think that is what makes me interested in being a designer. I like it when products and tools make our lives easier because they're designed well. So I've always noticed, I think when something seems like feels designed well or doesn't, like something's off. And I'm interested in figuring out why that is. And then my last value was adventure. I think I probably have many more values that I would add to the list if I had more time, but adventure is definitely something I value. I love to learn. I love to see and experience new things all the time and explore the world. So that's a big value of mine.
Thank you so much for sharing. I
Yeah.
hope that this activity was beneficial for all of you. And I encourage you, if even if you set on 3 tonight, think on it. These can change. These aren't set in stone, but they do help guide. So what's important to you now is good to kind of get that out so that you understand. All right, so let's move on to the next part. Oh, that was the next one. Let's move on to the next part of the framework, which is setting your vision. And when I say vision, I mean not just for this year, although this year is probably important, but down the road. So where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? This is a common interview question. People are going to ask you this question. And if you've thought about it, it's important to be able to articulate it. Now, if your goal is to say own your own agency, and maybe you're interviewing for a job that you're worried about that coming out, at least think about how you would answer the question, even if 3 to 5 years is your vision for yourself. Okay, it's not about answering the question in this kind of context though. For an interview, it's about thinking about it for yourself. If you can clearly articulate what you want to do down the road, it's going to help you set goals that get you there. So for example, back when I was first starting design, I, was kind of running into all sorts of different areas. I was very not focused. I was, I'm going to try development. Ooh, I'm going to learn Agile. Ooh, I'm going to learn this kind of project management. And as a result, I was ping-ponging everywhere, and I had no clear trajectory toward the future that I wanted. Once I figured out, I want to do UX design or call myself an UX designer, then it became much more clear what I wanted to do. And so that's what I would suggest, is really spend some time thinking about what your vision is for yourself. And then not just writing down one sentence, but write a narrative. Get really descriptive. What does that look like? Okay, so if your vision is to be a senior UX designer at an enterprise level company, right? That's your vision for yourself. What does that look like? You might have I'm running a team of 10 people. I'm overseeing a specific product. Like, get very specific, and don't just capture it in terms of professional either. Think about it in terms of what your home life looks like. I am going to live in a apartment at the top of the Austin Tower, whatever it is. Like, I'm going to live there. I'm going to have a helicopter that takes me from my house all the way over to Lake Austin where my boat is. And it's okay. Dream big. You do not need to make vision that realistic. I would much rather you dream big and then be surprised, be like, oh, I made it, than to have to like narrow down this stuff. This is all about the big picture. Okay. So really write down like what it's going to look like and don't hold back. Now, the next piece is narrowing it down. Now you know what 3 to 5 years is going to look like for you. Let's focus on some goals to get you in that direction. And we're going to use a method called the SMARTER framework. You may have heard of SMART. And all I've done is add 2 things onto the end. So let's go through this. The first part, the S, specific. It needs to be specific. If it's not specific, how can you possibly know if you are actually achieving it? It needs to be measurable. How do we it's easier to when you can quantify like what it is. Achievable, like can you actually achieve it within the amount of time that you have? So realistic comes in there too, and time bound. Like, I'm going to do this within the next year, the next month. Make sure that you have some boundaries around it. And then finally, I like to add these 2 in: enjoyable and rewarding. Because you can set a SMART goal. Like say I set a goal that I'm gonna mow my lawn every Sunday at 6 p.m. Well, that's specific and it's measurable, it's achievable, realistic, and time bound. So it's SMART. But I don't really like mowing the lawn, and it's not enjoyable for me, and it's not very rewarding. And I am much less likely to actually achieve this goal because it's not either of those. So I challenge you, when you think about goals, to also make sure that they're going to be enjoyable for you. Okay, and rewarding, because it's going to be so much harder to try to move forward with these goals and achieve them. So as you're thinking through these goals, and I tell my staff this, I want you to start with personal first. Everybody starts with professional. Start with personal. Your personal stuff should be like what you do. That's your life stuff, all right? Professional is great. I want you to achieve everything in your career, but if your personal is a mess and you're only focused on professional, it's not going to happen. So focus on the personal stuff first, and then put down your professional goals and see how you can get them to align with each other. So for instance, one of my personal goals is to get blueprints for an accessory dwelling unit, because I'm going to work with an architect to build the thing in my backyard. Okay. Another personal goal is to read 20 books and write a summary for each one. I enjoy reading. I enjoy writing. I need to, if I get that down, then I know that I've learned something. So that's another one of my personal goals. And I've set those first. Then with my professional goals, then I started, writing down all the things that were important. Now all of mine are, around my business. So like it's a revenue goal, and it's like getting a 401k match set up. So really boring stuff for probably designers, but super important for me. And what you want to do is you want to try to get a mix of tangible and intangible. They still need to be smarter, but tangible goals, these are the things that focus around, say, you know, a thing. Okay. So once you've achieved it, you're there, you've got it. And it's super easy to measure as a result. An intangible goal is, these are your life goals. These are the things that are ongoing, and they're a lot harder to make smarter, but they're really important because these are the things that motivate you to actually achieve the tangible goals. So you have to have both. If you don't have both, then it's going to be difficult to achieve any kind of goal. Now, once you've got your goals listed out, and I don't recommend a list of like 20. I seriously recommend 3 to 5, you know, maybe total, 6 total, like something enough like where you can actually achieve it. Once you've got all those, then you start looking for your most important goal. This is the linchpin. This is the goal that if you achieve it, it makes everything else, you know, possible for you. You know, it could be, you know, maybe you want to get an advanced degree, and you know, you have all these other things that you want to do, but you can't do them without that advanced degree. Well, then your most important goal would be the advanced degree. And in my case, of my goals, I have a revenue goal, and then I have that 401k match, and I have a couple of other like raising salaries and things like that. But my most important goal is this one. It is offload, delegate 99% of my client account management. The reason it's so important is that if I delegate all that and I'm doing less of the client account management, I can do more of the stuff that is going to help me achieve the other goals. So your most important goal is the one that kind of the dominoes fall in the line because you achieved it. Does that make sense? So when I talk to my team, we have one-to-ones. I ask them, I say, how are you doing on your most important goal? And they're supposed to talk to me about that. I'm not keeping up with all the goals. I'm keeping up with their most important goal. And sometimes it's personal and sometimes it's professional. To me, it doesn't matter. It's them setting it. And so for you, you need to set the one that's most important for you. So let me give you an example. So say you start off with a goal of like, you want to be a better designer. So you might, have a goal of get better at Figma. Sorry about my grammar's not great on that one, but get better at Figma. It's a good goal, but it needs some work. It needs a little bit more specificity. You can build on it a little bit more. So a smarter goal might be accomplish 4 30-day design challenges that you can create in Figma, because by repetition, you can get better at it. Or maybe you challenge yourself to create a Figma library, some sort of like something that can be shared out in the Figma community. Whatever it is, just by doing that practice with that specific goal, you can better measure how well you're doing at Figma. It's more about the trajectory, right? So once you complete, like say the design challenges, it might be harder to measure, how good you are at Figma, but at least you'll be able to know, like, I did it, I did the repetition, and I feel better having done it, rather than saying, okay, at the end of the year, what did I do? How do I know that I got better at Figma if you don't have anything, specific or measurable to look at it with? Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? I think I have a question slide. Nope, not yet. Any questions? Y'all ready to try it? I'm gonna set some goals. Fantastic. All right, so another 10-minute activity. So I want you to think about some things you want to achieve this year. As you focus on as a designer, but don't hold back on the other things. Personal goals you should set first. And so spend some quiet minutes doing that. And then if you feel comfortable, share with the other folks in your group. I am going to shuffle you up. That way you get some new partners. All right, and we're still on for 10 minutes. And feel free to call me if you have any questions. I'll pop into your breakout room. You can use the ask for help or something like that, all right? All right, have fun with this one. Hey, Harry, how'd that go? Oh, you're muted. I think I saw good when you're reading. I was reading lips. Welcome back. Welcome back. Everybody will be back in 30 seconds.
Oh, I thought I was muted. I think the activity is really good. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. All right. Everybody be back soon. And we're back. Awesome. So how many people have one goal that they feel pretty good about? Give me a thumbs up. I see a few hands. Good. Does anybody have more than one, like two? Few people. Anybody have more than three? Up. Melodia does. All right, cool. So would anybody feel comfortable sharing? Laura, I don't know if you're raising your hand to share, but if you are, we would love to have you share.
I was raising my hand because I had more than three.
You did?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing? If you don't, that's totally fine.
I'll rather keep them to myself.
All
Thank
right,
you.
all good, all good. Does anybody have one that they don't mind sharing?
I can
can
share.
share.
It's go for it. Go for it.
Oh, okay. So like my big goal is to buy a house, and I've had that goal for a while. And so I already have started taking like the smaller steps to get there. So I switched careers. So my first thing is I want to get like my first UX design job in the next 2 months or so. And then I want to improve my overall design skills and get more mentorship from senior designers and then become a senior designer. That way I could ultimately buy my house.
Great, I love how you've mapped that out. April, did you also have one you wanted to share?
Sure. This is a little ambitious, but it's ambitious on purpose so that if I'm under it, I'm still in a good place. And I want to apply to 30 jobs by the end of March.
That's a great goal. Yeah, awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Did anybody struggle or need some clarification?
I did want to share. I'm very used to SMART goals at my job, but I've never heard of smarter goals, and I love it. I love the enjoyable and rewarding aspect to it. So I'll definitely be applying that.
Awesome. I'm so glad. All right. So you're excited, you set goals, and then what could happen is the typical New Year's resolution route where 2 months in, you totally realize you haven't achieved it. We're not going to let that happen. All right. So let's talk about sticking with goals. Now, when I say sticking with goals, I mean within the time frame that you've set them. So say, right now, this is perfect time to set 2022 goals. But if things change, it's okay. I don't want anybody to be so attached to a goal and get so angry when your life changes. But if things are still going and the goal is still relevant, sticking with it, there's a couple of things you can do. One, you can hold yourself accountable, which never works for me. So here's how I do accountability. The first thing I do is I share them with someone else. Now, sometimes I post goals online. I have internally for my company, I have shared all of my goals with all of my staff. They all know. James he knows I'm not lying because he knows all my goals too. So I share them. I also have shared my goals with my entire peer group because I have an entire business peer group that I'm in and a business coach. They all know my goals too, because now that I've shared them, they're going to ask me, how are you doing on your most important goal? And that's how I hold myself accountable, is by sharing them with someone else. You can also set a schedule for yourself. You know, if maybe your goal is fitness, maybe you want to, you know, get fit and be, you know, stronger, faster, leaner by the end of the year. Well, maybe you set a schedule for yourself that, you know, every, you know, Sunday you're going to plan out your weekly workouts of what you're going to do, and meal prep so you can have healthy meals. So set that schedule for yourself so it's going to be easier and become a habit. And then also look at creating micro goals. So if you're, I love how Noemi, you want to buy a house and you've set like a path there. Those would maybe aren't micro goals, but even within them, you can set even smaller goals. When you can accomplish something, it kind of gets us excited and it makes us see the win, and it helps motivate us to keep us going so that we are reminded like how good it feels to accomplish it and it doesn't seem too big. And then also along that vein is we want to remind ourselves of the change that we want to see. And as designers, you guys are perfectly set out to do this because I'm going to recommend creating a vision board for your goals that you want to achieve. Now, here's how you set up the vision board. Pardon me for a second. You're going to set up the vision board by looking for images, okay, of what it would feel like when you accomplish your goal. All right. So I'll show you an example. Here are some images that I put on a vision board. Okay. So my goal, and this was a couple years ago, but my goal at the time was to go take my family to Hawaii. So I didn't just put a postcard of Hawaii. I wanted to feel like I was in Hawaii. So I chose a scuba diving picture, like I was underwater with my kids. And I just kept looking at it day after day, reminding myself, okay, I'm saving money so I can go on this trip to Hawaii. The other thing I was doing is I was like, I'm going to graduate with my master's degree. And this is what it's going to feel like. I'm going to feel so proud hanging it on the wall. That's what I'm going for. I also had a goal of just relaxing, of not being so stressed at work all the time. So I found this picture of, you know, someone just sitting back and relaxing. And this way, by having the images out front printed on like they were all over my office around my desk, I could just look up and remember that feeling. This helps motivate us so we can keep moving forward to the goal. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, and we don't have another breakout session for this, is look at your goals and then think about, okay, what is that going to be like when I achieve it? So maybe for Noemi, getting that house, you know, it might be an interior like of the house, looking at it and trying to figure out the furniture, right? Or, you know, for let's see, applying for jobs, maybe it's that feeling of getting that job offer. I don't know what that image would look like, but somehow I'm sure you can figure out a way to, you know, put that into some sort of visualization. So what is that going to be? You can go to Google Images, you can go to Unsplash, and just download those images, put them on like a Figma board or XD, and then print it out. Get it in front of you. I have mine at my office that I did for this year, and I printed out the whole thing and I have it like right there. So every day I sit down at my desk and I can see my vision board. That's what you need to do. Then the last piece of this whole thing is reflections. So you don't want to forget what you achieved. You want to look back on how did you do so that you can continuously improve. You can set goals for next year. So you need to take stock and you need to ask yourself questions about the past year or whatever that goal, you know, frame is. So first of all, what were your accomplishments? What were the things that you really feel proud of? Where did you fail too? I don't have one for that, but where did you fail? Where did you mess up? What is your life's purpose? Sometimes this changes. Sometimes you figure it out along the way. What are you most passionate about today? You might find that, you know, suddenly you've become super passionate about this one vertical within design. Maybe you're super passionate about usability testing, or you're super passionate about doing design for smartwatches, whatever that is. And then look back at what were your most significant learning experiences. What did you learn along the way? Because by looking at these things, all of this together really helps you frame your next goals. And it gets you, it makes you better at like writing goals for the next year. And then also, what is keeping you from taking your career to the next level? Is there anything in the way? This is almost like a goal candidate. You know, if you can figure out that thing that's blocking you, then that might be ready to take that your next step, your goal for the next year. Because goal setting never stops. You should always be looking and reassessing and reflecting back on what you did, taking stock of where you are now, and looking forward to the future. It's a constant cycle, kind of like the UX design, constant iterations. So all of these things are really important. Do you all have any questions?
Hi, I do have one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So how often, I know this is very personal, but like how often do you reassess? So I was trying to write my goals and it's like, I don't know if those measurable goals, if the actions that I'm taking are enough to reach those goals. Look, so if I say, okay, I'm gonna do this for 30 minutes every week or 2 hours every week or whatever it is. So when is it a good time to sort of stop and see if this is, you know, keeping me on track or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tend to reassess every quarter. So, you know, within my goals, I have like micro goals that are quarterly, and within those, I have some monthly. Like I didn't want to share with you my super crazy system. I wanted to give you something simpler, but I look at it on a quarterly basis, and I've gotten so much better at setting goals that I don't have to do much. Back in the beginning, I had no idea where I was starting. So that's, again, the reflections really help. I don't do the full reflection every quarter. I do the full reflection every year. But every quarter, I kind of take a look at like, okay, is this serving me? How far am I getting? Is the trajectory still correct? You know, do I need to increase, decrease? You know, just kind of take stock. The full reflections I do on a yearly basis, usually early December. And then I set my goals in December for the next year, but there's nothing wrong. You can determine what your yearly schedule is too. What other questions do you have?
How do you stay inspired? Like once you reach that goal, what if you get stuck? What do you do to like get inspired and come up with your next goal?
Ooh, great question. I have definitely gotten stuck. I have lots of heart-to-hearts with the people that I've shared my goals with. And then they usually ask a lot of questions like, well, why did that happen? Tell me more about that, and help you kind of dive in and dig deep. So you almost have to get heartbroken first before you can move forward. I get excited when I make that vision board, honestly. It helps me a lot stay focused and inspired. Sticking with goals is not easy. And another thing that helps is like having mini wins. Like anything I can get a win with is really helpful. I also have this super crazy like morning routine where I get up, I meditate, I do affirmations, I journal, I read something inspirational or whatever the book is. Like I do this whole thing, and that just kind of keeps me focused on keeping moving ahead. And especially if you're in the job hunt, it is super hard to keep your spirits up. And as someone who does a lot of sales every day, I can tell you I've had some really discouraging weeks and have almost thrown in the towel. And the only thing that kept me going was looking at my vision board and meditating. Those are the only thing that kept me going after some very rough weeks lately. What other questions?
Yeah, I was wondering if the vision board, do you have it printed out? Do you look at it? Is it somewhere that you look at it frequently, or Do you make it digitally and it kind of just is in the back burner?
That's a great question. So I personally print it out. And then I've seen people where they laminate it and then they put it next to their desk so they can see it all the time. I've also heard of people creating it digitally and making it their wallpaper for their laptop that they can look at whenever. So somewhere, because if I just put it digitally and put it in a file, I'd never look at it again. So I have to, and I print out my goals too. Like I actually put them on the wall next to my vision board. So I always have them handy and I can always look at them. So that's the first thing I see when I go into my office in the morning. I have printed out pictures and pasted them with glue stick onto foam core, like the little 8x11. I get crafty. It's fun. I like to, let that creativity flow. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Well, I'm happy to answer any questions for you for the next little bit. If you want to connect with me, this is my LinkedIn. Let's see, I think I still have it copied and pasted. Well, you can find me on UX and ATX, so join the Slack. And then you can also find me at standardbeagle.com. It has been really fun. I hope that you got a lot out of tonight. And here's to goal setting. Let us know how it goes. And if you need any accountability partners, you can always go on the Slack channel and ask for someone to help hold you accountable. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I'm happy to answer questions and we'll stop.